It's bioluminescence season here in Florida once again, when a certain species of algae living in many of the intercoastal rivers becomes active to the point that the water will glow a distinctive blue-green color when agitated by the slightest touch. Bioluminescence is one of those natural wonders that doesn't get enough love. For several years, I made trips out to the beach just to see it. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be heading back out there anytime soon, now that it's in the season again. I can stop having flashbacks to what happened last year. Everything started out great. Near the beginning of August, a couple of buddies and I met up in the afternoon and went kaying down our river of choice to find our secret camping cove. Nothing more than a small patch of solid ground hidden in the grooves. This year one of the guys brought his girlfriend along, which made 4 of us in total. She wasn't very familiar with the waters or going camping, but she was eager to see the bioluminescence she'd been forced to hear so much about. We all wanted her first time experiencing it to be extra special, so we made sure to bring some extra seltzer for her and enough party favors to go around. We got to the spot well before sundown and had more than enough time to set up our campsite for the night and get a small campfire going to keep the mosquitoes at bay, since at any given moment it was impossible to be more than 20 feet away from the water. The newbie expressed concerns about someone or something coming down the river and causing problems, but we rest assured that this part of the river wasn't part of any tour guides and wasn't on private property. He'd seen there several times before. As long as we only stayed for a single night, the chances of anything going wrong were slim. After easing everyone's worries, we broke into our supplies and roasted hot dogs over the fire, and hung out until it was finally sunset. Once it was dark, we changed into our swimsuits and splashed around in the glowing water near the shore. Everybody had a good time and we passed a glow-on-the-dark frisbee for a while, until we had our fun and waded back onto shore. We sat around the fire for a bit longer, until we were tired enough to sleep. But before we could, something amazing happened. We heard a splashing in the river, and as we looked over, we saw an incredible display of several large aquatic creatures swimming upstream, lighting up the water with every movement. We all rushed to the shore in awe, hoping to get a better look before they disappeared. Finally, the newbie cried out, "They're manatees." Then it became obvious that they were. It would have been impossible to tell what they were in the darkness if it weren't for the bioluminescence glowing against their silhouettes. Instead of a mystery, however, it was truly a magnificent sight, something you really don't see every day. In the moment, they looked like mythical creatures. It made it so easy to understand how old sailors might have mistaken manatees for mermaids if these were the circumstances. But then, as quickly as they arrived, they were gone. On their way upstream somewhere, there was a moment of silence. Then, as we all tried to believe that we had just seen a pot of glowing manatees, after a few seconds we saw started to make our way back up to camp. I was the last one out, walking behind my buddy's girlfriend. However, while I was still knee-deep in the water, I heard a noise. It was like another splash from the manatees. So I stopped and turned around, the hopes of catching another glimpse. I searched the surface of the river for blips of bioluminescence, but it was completely dark, still fearing, curious though, and weasel. I leaned over and put my hand just under the surface and shook it around, causing a bloom of light. Just then, my friends called out to me, asking what I was still doing in the river. I was about to turn around and say something to them, but then the water suddenly exploded with flight, as an alligator leaped up and lashed into my arm. I screamed and fell back into the water, wrestling with the gator, but before my friends could even reach me, the damn thing death rolled and ripped my arm clean off. Just like that, with my arm still in its mouth and ready to swallow. The gator slinked back into the water and disappeared, leaving me there in agony. My friends rushed to help me, applying first aid and immediately towing me in a kayak back to our cars and rushed me to the hospital, despite me losing my hand and most of my forearm, not to mention traumatizing a poor woman who might not want to go into nature ever again. I consider myself extremely lucky. The gator that attacked me was only somewhere between 4 and 6 feet long, still the size of a fully grown person, in more than strong enough to cause serious injury or death, but a far cry from the 12-footers that also live in the river, which could have torn my entire body apart in a matter of seconds. I walked away with a painful and permanent reminder not to take the dangers of Florida waters lightly, and not to let my guard down in nature, even when something beautiful is happening.